The basis of the criminal justice system is equal protection under the law. Unfortunately, this is a concept that is easier in theory than in practice. Throughout the semester, we learned about Frank Baumgartner's research regarding the correlation between race and the frequency of searches during traffic stops. His research shows that there are disproportionate rates in searches and arrests for black males than any other person. Between the years of 2000 and 2014, there were nearly 16 million traffic stops in North Carolina, and of these stops, over 62% are of Caucasians and over 30% are African Americans. However, where the disproportionality comes into play is how many of these people are searched after they are pulled for a traffic stop. The average search rate was 3.2% of the drivers that were stopped. The search rate for white males aged 20 to 24 was slightly higher at just over 4%. But the largest deviation from the average was black males aged 20 to 24. These individuals were searched at a rate of 9%, nearly 3 times the average. These unequal rates are not only seen in searches, but in arrests as well. The arrest rate for white males in this demographic is just over 3%, while the rate for black males is nearly 5%, pushing African American males into the legal system at a disproportionate rate in this microcosm of traffic stops.
Once we learned that this inequality is often perpetuated within the justice system, we decided to take an intersectional approach to determine if any other identity played a role for these black males once they were entered into the legal system. We spoke with 2 local Chapel Hill attorneys, Michael Patahowski and Matthew Szynski, and asked them what they thought was the largest inequality within the legal system. These attorneys are private defense attorneys that also have contracts in Durham, Chatham, and Orange County to serve as public defenders. Following an application process, attorneys who are granted contracts are assigned court-appointed clients in these counties. Without a doubt, they said that the socioeconomic status of the offender plays an enormous role in the way that they are treated once they are in the legal system.
The Office of Indigent Defense Services, the office in charge of ensuring fair representation in courts across the country, faced one of its greatest budget cuts, specifically in North Carolina, of $30 million in 2012. At the same time, the case count for attorneys within the IDS increased by about 22%. This overall 11% budget cut in the last 5 years led to an even greater reduced compensation fee paid to attorneys to handle these cases, causing lawyers to stop applying for these court-appointed contracts and leaving scarcer resources for these clients. The impact of these budget cuts can be seen in numerous areas on a smaller scale.
The funding is done at the bare minimum what the Constitution requires. I mean, it's funding. It's all about money, and money is being cut left and right. There's been times where a DA's position has been, like there's a hiring freeze, so a DA will leave and go somewhere else, and they can't replace that DA for years. I mean, the last one in Orange was years that they couldn't fund that position. So they went from a caseload of where they had it divided equally between 5 people or how many ever other DAs there were in that office, and now they're the load of 6 is divided between 5 people, and it's just they realized they were spending that money. They could hire someone for the same amount, but because of the budget and where it is, they just can't. I mean, there was a time where the court system stopped getting office supplies. So they were like taking donations for Post-it notes and stuff like that.
We'd bring paper.
Bring paper so they could print things.
Court.
When we
so they could print records
that our clients are entitled to by law, they couldn't print them. So we'd have to bring paper so that they could print them.
We asked the attorneys what they thought was the greatest inequality in the legal system in their experience, and they believe it to be the vast differential in clients' socioeconomic status. These budget cuts and changes by the local legislators have altered the crimes that are eligible for public defenders. Certain misdemeanors now leave offenders with only 2 options: hiring a private attorney or defending themselves with only minimal knowledge of how the legal system works. These changes have disproportionately affected low-income individuals.
Socioeconomic is probably biggest. I think with our legislature in North Carolina, we're changing a lot of things where you can no longer get court-appointed counsel for a lot of misdemeanors during the misdemeanor reclassification, I think it's called, where they are possession of marijuana, possession of marijuana paraphernalia. They are now class 3 misdemeanors, which they call it the decriminalization of marijuana, but that's really not what it is in North Carolina. It's an economic issue. They put it down as a class 3, and then the law says you can't get court-appointed counsel for a class 3. It's still a misdemeanor. It's still on your record that if you are charged as someone who has money, you go out, you hire an attorney, they take care of it. If you don't have money, it's not to say you couldn't negotiate the same result yourself in some places, not all places, but some places. But the issue is that you don't know the system. If you're a type of person who doesn't get charges often, you got this charge, but you don't have the money to hire an attorney, you don't get court-appointed counsel. So you're just kind of out there on your own, which is absolutely going to result in different outcomes.
In order to account for these budget cuts, one of the ways the burden of cost has fallen on individuals is in the form of higher court fees. However, many of the people who are paying for these costs are people with low socioeconomic status. These people can also face greater fines if they are unable to pay on time, creating a cycle of poverty for those involved in the legal system.
At the same time, they've raised the fees. So court costs when Mike and I started were $100. And now you guys know it's an infraction is $188, and this is 10 years later. Criminal charge is $190. An improper equipment of a speeding ticket would cost you $263 now, whereas it used to be, $110?
Yeah, 110.
And we haven't had inflation of 100% in the last decade.
Yeah, that's not over a long period of time.
So what it's doing is it's pushing that cost down to people who can least afford it. Because usually people who get in trouble are the people on fringes of society who are without jobs. And you create this cycle of poverty.
Which is
Where we think money plays the biggest role in the legal system is the power money can have over the outcome of a person's case. Many of the alternatives to jail time or harsher outcomes are unaffordable for low-income individuals. For example, some people are given the option to go to treatment instead of jail. However, these individuals need to have the funds to afford this treatment.
You see, with retained clients they have money to do certain things to better their case, whereas an appointed client may not have those funds, and the court may not be willing to give those funds because of budget cuts. So it ends up being, in all honesty, the attorneys who are putting in a lot of extra work on those cases it's free work essentially. And the person they could be trying 10 times harder than the person with money, but if they don't have the $110 to get the alcohol assessment, or the literally $18,000 that it would cost that some of these treatment centers want up front for inpatient treatment, they would have to 18 to 20 grand up front to go into this. If you have the money, you can go do it, and that treatment, inpatient treatment facility can substitute in for your jail time. If you don't have that money, you can't do that, so your only option of inpatient treatment or jail time is jail time.
After learning about the socioeconomic disparities within the public defense system, we took a step back and wanted to see if the racial composition of the low socioeconomic group had any similarities with the racial composition of Baumgartner's traffic stop research. As you can see from the graphs, in 2013, the median net worth of households for white individuals was 13 times greater than that of African American households. In 2013, the median net worth of white households was $141,900, while the median net worth for black households was $11,000. These graphs show you that the bottom economic class in this country is primarily made up of minorities. As you can see in the second graph, the disparities between median income in white and black people is also tremendous. As you can see, there are racial similarities between those being entered into the legal system and those who don't have much money.
So what does this mean? Through an intersectional approach, we realize that treatment within the legal system is not just race and gender-based. Socioeconomic status plays a huge role. Class identity is an important part because it separates people once they are entered into the system. This is intersectional because rich black males can afford alternatives to jail time or harsher outcomes, and poor white males have their white privilege that works in their favor for many steps in the process. For example, their white privilege comes into play in regards to who makes up their jury. Mike also had some comments regarding the makeup of local juries. He explains that there are numerous factors that come into play.
There are a lot of times that it gets pointed out, you look at the jury pool and it's not as racially diverse as the population of that county would be. Economically, socioeconomically also. Keep in mind what qualifies and doesn't qualify people for jury duty. I mean, some people don't show up for jury duty. Some people show up. Those more responsible people are going to show up. That has more to do with socioeconomic issues than anything else. You have to be able to get transportation there every single day. If you're in a 2-week-long trial, 3-week-long trial, you're going to the courthouse every single day. You have to be able to afford to not work for 3 weeks while they pay you your few dollars a day for being on jury duty. Like, it's not realistic. Also, there are issues in poorer communities. You have more people who are, some by happenstance, others for whatever reason, but more people convicted of crimes, felonies. You have more people in situations that would prevent them from being jurors. And we find this in areas where there are a lot more minorities. It is less a jury of their peers. For example, Durham County is, percentage-wise, much higher African American population than it is anything else. My last jury there had one black woman and a Hispanic man, and that's it. That is not representative of the population there. I mean, it's one of those things that attorneys can use to argue for relief post-trial if it doesn't go their way, but that one went our way, so it never came up as an issue.
So after juxtaposing all of this information, black males are disproportionately targeted for searches and arrests and simple traffic stops, which gets some of these people into the legal system. And as we have learned, many African Americans are a part of the lower SES group, indicating that many of these black males are indigent and unable to use money to pay their way out of the system. Does the legal system allow everyone their constitutional right of equal protection under the law? This was one of the main questions that drove this project. Through these interviews and the research we did, we came to the conclusion that the answer to that is no. As we have shown through this video, the legal system disproportionately affects black males in the original steps of entering the system, and through our intersectional approach, we learned that these two identities, race and gender, are not the only ones that play an important role. Economic class identity is one factor that is just as critical and often overlooked. Money buys you defense, and defense allows you protection under the law. The justice system does not truly grant equal protection under the law because of the role that money plays.